Namaste, aloha, welcome to the Nectar of Devotion class. My name is Janapati Das, and please accept my respects, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my Guru Dev and unto the lotus feet of my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we'll start with a little bit of chanting before the class, so please join along. Haribo Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Okay, so we are reading from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, entitled and translated as the Nectar of Devotion. I'll give you a close look at Radha and Krishna there. This is a summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and we've talked about the Goswamis, we've read the preface, and now we are going to go through the introduction of the Nectar of Devotion by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Invoking auspiciousness, Lord Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the reservoir of all rasas or relationships, which are called neutrality, passive adoration, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, conjugal love, comedy, compassion, fear, chivalry, ghastliness, wonder, and devastation. So these are the different mellows by which a living entity can experience devotion or their relationship with Sri Krishna. The conditioned material living entity experiences different kinds of rasas, similar kinds of rasas in the material world, except those are contaminated by material energy, material nature. So we do have a relationship of servitorship or friendship. We have friends. We have those kinds of like friendship relationship rasas or mellows that we experience for friendship. Parenthood, I'm a father. I experience certain things with my children. Conjugal love, wife, husband, so, and there's more here. And this summary study is going to go into great detail about what exactly the rasas are, examples of the rasas in scripture and whatnot. He is a supreme attractive form. Krishna is the most attractive. Krishna means the most attractive form of God. And by his universal and transcendental attractive features, he has captivated all the gopis headed by Taraka, Palika, Shyama, Lalita, and ultimately Srimate Radharani. Let his lordship's grace be on us, so that there may not be any hindrance in the execution of this duty of writing the Nectar of Devotion, impelled by his divine grace, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is paying respectful obeisances unto his spiritual master, my spiritual great-grandfather, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada and of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, by whose inspiration I have been engaged in the matter of compiling the summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is the sublime science of the devotional service as propounded by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago in West Bengal, India, to propagate the movement of Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami begins his great book by offering his respectful obeisances unto Sri Sanatan Goswami, who is his elder brother and spiritual master, and he prays that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu may be very pleasing to him. He further prays that by residing in that ocean of nectar, he may always feel transcendental pleasure in the service of Radha and Krishna. So if we look at these words, specifically bhakti is a devotional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Rasamrita, rasa is the mellows that we've been taught. We are going to go into the relationships that we experience, and the Amrita is the nectar, or it is elixir, elixir or amrita, which means something very sweet and very attractive. So this is the relationships of devotion that one may experience, the storehouse of love for Krishna. Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the great devotees and acharyas, holy teachers, who are compared with sharks in the great ocean of nectar and who do not care for the various rivers of liberation. Impersonalists are very fond of merging into the supreme like rivers that come down and merge into the ocean. The ocean can be compared with liberation, and rivers with all the different paths of liberation. The impersonalists are dwelling in the river water, which eventually comes to mix with the ocean. They have no information, however, that within the ocean, as within the river, there are innumerable aquatic living entities. The sharks who dwell in the ocean do not care for the rivers which are gliding down into it. The devotees eternally live in the ocean of devotional service, and they do not care for the rivers. So we have just finished the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita was just to surrender to Krishna in love. And this is like merging submerging, I should say, not merging, that's a bad word to use, submerging ourselves into this ocean of Amrita, Rasamrita, of the relationships, the loving relationships with Krishna that we just surrender to. And we're not, and so a devotee of Krishna, there are many types of liberation by which someone can come to be freed from their sinful reactions, and this is such a great desire by a lot of Christians to have Jesus die on the cross so that they can be freed of their sinful reactions. But the devotee of Krishna is not particularly interested in liberation at all, because they know that the highest form of spiritual life is the loving relationship, is submerging themselves in this loving relationship with God, and by which naturally liberation comes freely. So the sharks are these great spiritual masters or captains of the ship who dwell in the ocean of Bhakti Rasamrita. The sharks who dwell in the ocean do not care for the rivers which are gliding down into it. The devotees eternally live in the ocean of devotional service and do not care for the rivers. In other words, those who are pure devotees always remain in the ocean of transcendental loving service to the Lord and have no business with the other processes, which are compared to the rivers that only gradually come to the ocean. And we had talked about that, these paths. There are different rules, regulations, and paths and yoga paths, and that Krishna explained to Arjuna that a person can take those directions, and eventually they will get to the ocean. But you want to take a more direct path, you just surrender to Krishna and submerge yourself into the process, into the ocean. Srila Rupa Goswami prays to his spiritual master Srila Sanatan Goswami for the protection of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of pure nectar of devotional service. From the argumentative logicians who unnecessarily meddle in the science of the service of the Lord. He compares their arguments and logic to volcanic eruptions in the midst of the ocean. In the midst of the ocean, such volcanic eruptions can do very little harm, and similarly, those who are against devotional service to the Lord and put forth many philosophical theses about the ultimate transcendental realization cannot disturb this great ocean of devotional service. So a volcano that's erupting in the ocean is not going to have the impact that it is going to have on land. It's in the ocean already, so it's submerged. It won't bother. The author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami, very humbly submits that he is just trying to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And this is what the devotee of Krishna does. To be pleasing to their spiritual master is to give Krishna to others. Spread Lord Chaitanya's mission. Although he humbly thinks himself unfit for this work, That should be the attitude of all preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, which makes us Rupanugas, or the followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. We should never think of ourselves as great preachers, but should always consider that we are simply instrumental to the previous acharyas. And simply by following in their footsteps, we may be able to do something for the benefit of suffering humanity. So this is the attitude of the consciousness of the devotee of Krishna, never feeling themselves qualified to, they don't think, well, I'm a great Swami. Kind of, yeah, come hear me speak, yeah. They're just like doing this as service to Krishna, but they feel completely inadequate. And if they can please their spiritual master by helping others, then it's great. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is divided into 4 parts, just as the ocean is sometimes divided into 4 parts. And there are different sections within these 4 divisions. Originally in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean is divided like the watery ocean into east, west, north, and south, while the subsections within these different divisions are called waves. As in the ocean, there are always different waves, either on the eastern side, the western side, the northern side, or the southern side. Yeah, if you go all over the island, you'll see the waves coming in from different places of the ocean. So similarly, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has different waves. In the first part, there are 4 waves, the first being a general description of devotional service. The second concerns the regulative principles for executing devotional service, and the third wave, devotional service in ecstasy. And the fourth is the ultimate goal, love of God. These will be explicitly described along with their different symptoms. The authorized descriptions of bhakti or devotional service following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas can be summarized in the following statement by Srila Rupa Goswami. First-class devotional service is known by one's tendency to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, serving the Lord favorably. The purport is that one may also be in Krishna consciousness unfavorably, but that cannot be counted as pure devotional service. Pure devotional service should be free from the desire for any material benefit or for sense gratification, as these desires are cultivated through fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. Generally, people are engaged in different activities to get some material profit, while most philosophers are engaged in proposing transcendental realization through volumes of word jugglery and speculation. Pure devotional service must always be free from such fruitive activities and philosophical speculations. Yes, we've touched upon this in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that one cannot come to know Krishna truly by fruitive activities or philosophical speculations, which is about most of what goes on, even on the level of like psychology and philosophy. And science, empirical science, people are speculating. So if you go, a little higher into your mind and less gross, material sense enjoyment, maybe you're doing things more in the mode of goodness, and you're thinking, I want to use my mind for the betterment of man and whatnot, and they still are speculating with their mind. One has to learn Krishna consciousness of pure devotional service from the authorities by spontaneous loving service. This devotional service is a sort of cultivation. It is not simply inaction for people who like to be inactive or devote their time to silent meditation. There are many different methods for people who want this, but cultivation of Krishna consciousness is different. So there are forms of meditation where you're more inactive, you're not speaking or trying to meditate on your temple or something like that, your belly button, or but this is an active process, because the living entity needs service to do, and this kind of meditation is dovetailed to the service of Krishna, but it may appear to be material activities. This particular word used by Srila Rupa Goswami in this connection is anushilana, or cultivation by following the predecessor teachers, acharyas. As soon as we say cultivation, we must refer to activity. Yeah, because you can't cultivate things. You can't just go out and watch a garden grow and just be like, okay, if we want grow, garden, grow. You have to go out there and you have to dig the dirt, you have to plant the seeds, you have to pull the weeds. And this is the cultivate, which is a similar word to cult and culture, by the development of something. And the only way to do that is to know what to do. Just if you can't do anything without not having somebody tell you what to do. If you're a garden, you want to learn to grow a garden, and you don't know how to grow a garden, you can't just figure it out. You got to have the master garden come to you and say, well, look, you got to clear this path first of all. Let's do that. Clear it out, pull out all the weeds. We have to cultivate the soil, and we have to put compost in it, and we have to put the seeds in and water it and pull the weeds and come up alongside the plants and make sure we're giving enough water, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of activities. The spiritual master, who is the master gardener, will tell you these are the things you must do. First and foremost, chant Krishna's names. That is the key. Try to chant Krishna's names as offensivelessly as possible. This is a cultivation. We're cultivating our attachment to Krishna. And then there are many other things that the Acharya will tell us, but we've learned this from our teacher, from our Acharya, and our teacher has learned it from his teacher, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has learned it from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and so on and so on. So we have a chain of disciplic master gardeners who are teaching us how to grow our gardens of spiritual life. Without activity, consciousness alone cannot help us. Yeah, we can't be just aware of something, and think, oh, I wish this were going to happen. It's true about anything. You can't things just don't fall out of the sky. You have to you have to work towards things. Without activity, all activities may be divided into two classes. One class may be for achieving a certain goal, and the other may be for avoiding some unfavorable circumstance. In Sanskrit, these activities are called pravriti and nivriti, positive and negative action. There are many examples of negative action. For instance, a diseased person has to be cautious and take medicine in order to avoid some unfavorable illness. Yeah. So spiritual master says, you should be doing this and not this, because this will, like a disease, it will come and take over your body and kill you. So you've got to actually do this other process that will counteract that. Those who are cultivating spiritual life and executing devotional service are always engaged in activity. There's all kinds of service, because by nature the living entity has a serving tendency. So the spiritual master engages the living entity in spiritual activities, and that can come in forms of lots of different things, from donating money to, of course, chanting Krishna's names, to actually cleaning the temple of the deities, to engaging in the direct service or indirect service of the spiritual master, to engaging in outreach processes. And there's so many subdivisions in that. There has to be people who clean places. There has to be people who have look out for places. There have to be people who arrange and reach out to people. There's so many things to do. And in this process, there's no shortage of service. People are always looking for things and ways to serve Srila Prabhupada. Thinking. So such activity can be performed with the body or with the mind. Thinking, feeling, and willing are all activities of the mind. And when we will to do something, the activity comes to be manifest by gross bodily senses. Thus, in our mental activities, we should always try to think of Krishna and try to plan how to please him, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas and the personal spiritual master. There are activities of the body, activities of the different senses and activities of speech. So we refer to these in the Bhagavad Gita, austerities of the body, of the senses, and of speech, or it's also activities. A Krishna conscious person engages his word in preaching the glories of the Lord. This is called kirtan. So there is an austerity in the sense that we've referred to Mona, people who speak, instead of speaking nonsense, which we do a lot of, we preach the glories of the Lord, and that is kirtan. And by his mind, a Krishna conscious person always thinks of the activities of the Lord. We could be thinking, not creating an austerity by just thinking of whatever in our mind, but we curb our mind by refocusing it on service of Krishna. As he is speaking on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So when we are listening to the Bhagavad Gita or reading the Bhagavad Gita, we can imagine Krishna talking to Arjuna. This is an activity of the mind. Or engaging in various pastimes in Vrindavan with his devotees. In this way, one can always think of the activities and pastimes of the Lord. This is a mental culture of Krishna consciousness. So these activities that seem very these are things that I normally do. I think about stuff, or I think about, if I'm reading a book, I think about the stuff in the book. But when it has to do with Krishna, it's actually an activity in Krishna consciousness. So we could be listening just by the activity. You say, you know what, today I'm going to listen to the Krishna book instead of watching some reel on social media about whatever nonsense, some people fighting in a mall or whatever. So much distraction and so many useless things that people watch and doom scroll on their phone, when we could actually be engaging in those activities of the mind and the body and the senses, in the activities of Krishna karma, Krishna katha, the pastimes of Krishna, the activities of Krishna. In this way, one can always think of the activities and the pastimes of the Lord. This is a mental culture of Krishna consciousness. Similarly, we can offer many services with our bodily activities, but all such activities must be in relationship with Krishna. This relationship is established by connecting oneself to the bona fide spiritual master, who is a direct representative of Krishna in disciplic succession. Therefore, the execution of Krishna conscious activities with the body should be directed by the spiritual master and then performed with faith. So the Shraddha, right? We perform it. We trust our spiritual master when we come to understand that he is Krishna's representative, and that when he tells us to do something, we trust that it's for our best intentions. The connection with the spiritual master is called initiation. From the date of initiation by the spiritual master, the connection between Krishna and the person cultivating Krishna consciousness is established. Without initiation by a bona fide spiritual master, the actual connection with Krishna consciousness is never performed. And there's something to be said about that, because, there are people who are not initiated, who are students of our spiritual master, but yet they act on this level of initiation. They won't dovetail their wills completely. In many cases, there are people who are physically initiated by the spiritual master, by their spiritual Diksha guru, who don't follow, who are not, when you make that connection with your spiritual master, it's a very serious thing, So if you're just kind of taking it sort of like, oh, I don't feel like doing this today, or I don't feel like doing that today, it's said that my spiritual master has said that things like, if you don't do your japa, because this is what your spiritual master is asking you to do, you can do your japa or not do your japa, but he says that when you don't do your japa, this is an offense. You're actually not a disciple of him when you are not completing your rounds. So this connection is broken. You're actually being very offensive, which is worse than a person who is not initiated So this form of initiation is important, but it's not just because you become initiated that suddenly you have this magic power. It's like you're, other than the fact that you have been taken under the shelter of your spiritual master. And so it is your job to do what we're saying here, the actions, the activities of what is being asked of you by your spiritual master, and take it very seriously. That kind of service should be done as best as possible. But this cultivation of Krishna consciousness is not material. The Lord has generally three energies, namely the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. So it's not a material cultivation, it's a spiritual cultivation. It's not like you're getting like brownie points for doing, like if I do this, this, and this, and this, then I get this, this, and this, and this. I'm doing all my rounds. It's really about consciousness. By Krishna's mercy and by your spiritual master's mercy that you will make progress. Not by anything that you're doing other than following the instructions. This cultivation of Krishna consciousness is not material. The Lord has generally three energies, namely the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. The living entities are called marginal energy, and the material cosmic manifestation is the action of the external or material energy. Then there is a spiritual world, which is the manifestation of the internal energy. The living entities, who are called marginal energy, perform material activities when acting under the inferior external energy. And when they engage in activities under the internal spiritual energy, their activities are called Krishna conscious. So the marginal energy, the Jivatma, is the same quality of spiritual energy as Krishna, as a spiritual energy. But it is situated between the material energy, the external energy, and the internal energy. And depending on our consciousness, depending on what we want to surrender to, we will come under the influence of material energy, or we can come under the influence of Radharani, Radharani or Maya Devi. There's no in between. It's either or. So that's how weak we are. That's how susceptible we are. But if we take shelter under Krishna's energy, then Maya Devi there is no, as I say, death, where is thy sting? This means, and they engage in activities under the internal spiritual energy. Their activities are called Krishna conscious. This means that those who are great souls or great devotees do not act under the spell of material energy, but act instead under the protection of the spiritual energy. Any activities done in devotional service or in Krishna consciousness are directly under the control of spiritual energy. In other words, energy is a sort of strength, and this strength can be spiritualized by the mercy of both the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. So the spiritual energy is a type of strength. It's a bala, it's strength, spiritual strength, which is different than the taking shelter under the external energy. Instead of receiving strength, where we get the illusion of strength, of some kind of perceived strength, but we're actually getting sucked of our blood, like mosquitoes sucking. Maya Devi sucks any kind of strength we have out of it. We're just beaten up by Maya Devi under the illusion that you will have strength. Yeah, you will be powerful. You will be God. You are God. It's all about you. Any activities in devotional service are Krishna consciousness, or in Krishna consciousness, are directly under the control of spiritual energy. In other words, energy is a sort of strength, and this strength can be spiritualized by the mercy of both the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. That's a very important line. This strength can be spiritualized by the mercy of the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master is the external manifestation of Krishna's mercy. He is the the manifestation of Krishna's mercy. He is here, he is the protector of the most fallen. He's a representative of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, Lord Chaitanya says that it is a fortunate person who comes in contact with the bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. One who is serious about spiritual life is given by Krishna the intelligence to come in contact with the bona fide spiritual master, and then by the grace of the spiritual master, one becomes advanced in Krishna consciousness. In this way, the whole jurisdiction of Krishna consciousness is directly under the spiritual energy, Krishna and the spiritual master. This has nothing to do with the material world. It's Krishna, the spiritual master, Krishna, Bhakti Yoga, Sadhana Bhakti. All the processes is all Krishna's energy. When we speak of Krishna, we refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead along with his many expansions. He is expanded by his plenary parts and parcels, his differentiated parts and parcels, and his different energies. Krishna, in other words, means everything and includes everything. Generally, however, we should understand Krishna to mean Krishna in his personal expansions. Krishna expands himself as Baladev, Shankarshan, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Rama, Nrsimha, and Varaha, as well as many other incarnations and innumerable Vishnu expansions. These are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam to be as numerous as the uncountable waves. So Krishna includes all such expansions as well as his pure devotees. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Krishna's expansions are all complete in eternity, blissfulness, and cognizance. Devotional service means to prosecute Krishna conscious activities which are favorable to the transcendental pleasure of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And any activities which are not favorable to the transcendental favor of the Lord cannot be accepted as devotional service. For example, great demons like Ravana, Kamsa, and Hiranyakashipu were always thinking of Krishna, but they were thinking of him as their enemy. So in the Krishna book, we remember Kamsa was having dreams about Krishna. He was just like always in fear of Krishna, thinking about Krishna. Oh, I gotta kill Krishna. I gotta get rid of him because he's just disturbing my enjoyment of it as being a demon. This sort of thinking cannot be accepted as bhakti or Krishna consciousness. The impersonalists sometimes misunderstand devotional service in such a way that they divide Krishna from his paraphernalia and pastimes. For example, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and the impersonalists say that although Krishna is of interest, the battlefield of Kurukshetra isn't. The devotees, however, also know that the battlefield of Kurukshetra is itself has nothing to do with their business. But in addition, they know that Krishna does not mean just Krishna alone. He is always with his associates in paraphernalia. So my dear Srila Prabhupada has made this, that Krishna is not separate from his paraphernalia, from his pastimes, from his devotees. Every time you see pictures of Krishna, Krishna's with somebody. You got Krishna and the butterflies back here, and there's probably in the back there gopis running to see Krishna. There's, I have a picture of Krishna with the parrot. Krishna's over here with Balaram and all the animals that are around his legs and the ducks and birds flying around him. Krishna is with Radha, Krishna is with Balaram, Krishna is with the cowherd boys, Lord Chaitanya is with Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya is with the Goswamis and people chanting in the streets. So it's all about relationship. So this comes back to this point of this rasas, because you cannot have any kind of mellow of a relationship without a relationship, and without the relationship, you can't have a relationship without other people. You can't just have it. So this is where impersonalists, they're like, they don't know what to say. They may pretend, oh yeah, this is a pretend, like we have some mellows of relationship, and we stir it up, and then we go out through the top of our head and enter into the picture of Krishna, and we become the Krishna, and we become all, and we are all. And this is such bullshit. Sorry, dog shit. Bullshit. Bullshit is good. Dog shit is So the main point is this is everything about this nectar of devotion, right? It's about relationship. Give something to eat to the man with his weapons. The eating process is done by the man, not by the weapon. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness, a devotee may be interested in the paraphernalia and locations, such as the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which are associated with Krishna, but he is not concerned with simply any battlefield. He is concerned with Krishna, his speech, his instructions, etc. It is because Krishna is there that the battlefield is so important. This is a summary understanding of what Krishna consciousness is. Without this understanding, one is sure to misunderstand why the devotees are interested in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. One who is interested in Krishna becomes interested in his different pastimes and activities. Yeah, we're not interested in the battlefield of Kurukshetra as just like a battlefield, or, Dwarka as a city, or the Mahabharata, the Pandavas as people and warriors. Everything is related to Krishna. We know that Dwarka, why is Dwarka there? Because Krishna built it. Krishna was living there and people were associating with Krishna. Why is it important that there was a battlefield? Because Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and later the sages preached about Krishna on the same area of the sages of Naimisharanya. So we don't separate things and just isolate themselves in the same way that everything is related to Krishna. We do our activities. They may seem to be very normal activities, teaching, making money, raising kids, but no, what is our focus? Krishna is the focus. Krishna is the master of the house. Everything we do in this house is related to Krishna in one way or the other. So we don't pull God out of the picture. The problem is with society falling apart and having so many problems is because people want to take God out of the picture. They want to think that these things are for us to enjoy. We're doing these things for us. We're the Krishna. We're the God. We're the gods. We are here to enjoy. Even Christians and Muslims are like, well, God created the heavens and the earth was for the enjoyment of humans. No, God did not create this earth for the enjoyment of humans. Otherwise, this is why you get atheists who are like, well, if God created this as pleasure, why is there so much suffering, and why do some people enjoy and other people? And then they're like, Christians are like, I don't know, I guess because God is trying to test us. It's just lame answers. It's like, no, God did not create this. It is here for our perceived enjoyment. It's not really enjoyment. It's more of a reformatory to show us that we can't be away from God. We can have that free choice to go away from God. But it's like leaving our boat or taking a boat and throwing the anchor away and just floating away. We don't have any anchor without Krishna. Because Krishna, we are in a loving relationship with Krishna. We are intimately related to Krishna because we are the same spiritual energy as Krishna. We are Krishna's children. So of course we're going to feel like completely unhappy in this material world. This is a summary of understanding of what Krishna consciousness is. Without this understanding, one is sure to misunderstand why devotees are interested in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Okay, so I read that already. The definition of a pure devotee as given by Rupa Goswami and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu can be summarized thus. His service is favorable and is always in relation to Krishna. In order to keep the purity of such Krishna conscious activities, one must be freed from all material desires and philosophical speculation. Any desire except for the service of the Lord is called material desire. And philosophical speculation refers to the sort of speculation which ultimately arrives at a conclusion of voidism or impersonalism. So even mental speculation, philosophical speculation, and I know this because I used to be one of those guys that would sit there and we would discuss Nietzsche and Sartre and Plato and and kind of bounce off everything. And ultimately, this is what the conclusion would, you can only go as far as the white light or voidism, like Buddhism, right? This is confirmed. Okay. Oh, this conclusion is useless for a Krishna conscious person. Only rarely by philosophical speculation can one reach the conclusion of worshipping Vasudeva Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita itself. The ultimate end of philosophical speculation then must be Krishna, with the understanding that Krishna is everything, the cause of all causes, and that one should therefore surrender unto him. If this ultimate goal is reached, then philosophical advancement is favorable. But if conclusion of philosophical speculation is voidism or impersonalism, that is not bhakti. So we come to the conclusion, we understand that Krishna is Krishna consciousness. Krishna is the source of all things. Therefore, we can use philosophical speculation to support our arguments because we know the conclusion. If we're going to be concluding that it's all void or impersonalist, that this is not going to help. Karma or fruitive activities are sometimes understood to be real ritualistic activities. There are many persons who are very much attracted by the ritualistic activities described in the Vedas. But if one becomes attracted simply to ritualistic activities without understanding Krishna, his activities are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. So once again, even the ritualistic practices that were set up in the Varnashram system were there like these rivers to help guide a person towards the ultimate conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if you're doing the ritualistic practices just for the sake of doing the ritualistic practices, then this becomes a problem. And this is what Jesus Christ came and he was talking to the Pharisees. He said, you vipers and hypocrites, you're not helping these people at all. You're saying the same ritualistic practices for their sake only. You didn't know that the laws of Moses were actually there to help elevate people to come to know Jehovah. So, if this ultimate goal is reached, then philosophical... Maybe let me get this in. The ultimate end of philosophical speculation then must be Krishna, with the understanding that Krishna is everything, the cause of all causes, and one should therefore surrender unto him. It's the Bhagavad Gita, right? If this ultimate goal is reached, then philosophical advancement is favorable. But if the conclusion of philosophical speculation is voidism or impersonalism, that is not bhakti. Karma or fruitive activities are sometimes understood to be ritualistic activities. There are many persons who are very much attracted by the ritualistic activities described in the Vedas, but if one becomes attracted simply to ritualistic activities without understanding Krishna, his activities are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Actually, Krishna consciousness can be based simply on hearing, chanting, and remembering, etc. Nine processes of devotional service. Described in the Srimad Bhagavatam are 9 different processes besides which everything done is unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Thus, one should always be guarding against fall downs. Srila Rupa Goswami has also mentioned in this definition of bhakti the word gana karmadi. This karmadi, fruitive work, consists of activities which are unable to help one to attain pure devotional service. Many forms of so-called renunciation are also not favorable to Krishna conscious devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami has also quoted a definition from the Narada Pancharatra as follows: one should be free from all material designations and must be cleansed of all material contamination by Krishna consciousness. He should be restored to his pure identity, where he engages his senses in the service of the proprietor of the senses. So when Hrishikesh, right? So when our senses are engaged in the actual proprietor of the senses, Krishna, that is called devotional service. In our conditional state, our senses are engaged in serving these bodily demands. When the same senses are engaged in executing the order of Krishna, it is called bhakti. As long as one identifies himself as belonging to a certain family, a certain society, or a certain person, he is said to be covered with designations. As when we say, you know, when you're inquiring about who are you, and people are saying, oh, I'm James, I'm at 57, I'm an white American male, I'm a teacher, I am straight, I am this or that, you know, whatever. I was born in this here and that here. These are all material designations of the body. When one is fully aware that he does not belong to any family, society, or country, but is eternally related to Krishna, then he realizes that his energy should be employed not in the interest of so-called family, society, or country, but in the interests of Krishna. This is very important because we've just ended this month of Pride LGBTQ, right? Where everybody is about identity, you know, protect the trans people, protect the gay people, protect the queer people, protect the pansexual, whatever they might be, right? So many different kind of variations of people seeking their identity or sexual identity. But here it says here that when one understands that they are not part of any kind of designation of the mind or whatever karma you might have come through, that your energy should be employed in the interests of Krishna. And it's not the interest of Krishna that people become more and more deluded about their designations and think, well, I'll practice this, but this is my designation, this is who I am. No, you know that you're not that, and therefore you should be acting according to what you should be doing. That this is the purity of purpose and the platform of pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so that is our introduction. We will start with part 1 next time, titled Chapter 1 is the characteristics of pure devotional service. Very exciting. This is a very cool book. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Namaste.